got feedback from the people who have adopted our text so far, and we kind of wanted to come to understand what they're doing with the course and the role that it plays in the curriculum. Some people are using it as a basic introductory course that will feed into various degree programs from there, and other people are using it as an upper level specialization course. I'm from the Department of Strategic Communication in the College of Business, and so I'm familiar kind of with some of the comm programs that are being developed in terms of where this course plays a role. But we've also gotten feedback on marketing. The purpose of the course, and if you're familiar with the concept of IMC, is to bring about the necessary integration of these three academic silos, because they all play a role in today's IMC. And so for our students to understand that they have to see how all of these work together. So the process seeks to make sure that MarTech and marketing and common media are all working together in integrated fashion, because consumers experience brands as a single, consistent, integrated entity. And Ryan mentioned the concept of consumer centrism, and that is really core to today's IMC. The evolution of technology has changed marketing communication tremendously and emerged as what we now refer to as IMC. And that's because of that technology, consumers and brands are now in an interactive, data-driven relationship. And innovative brands, consumer-centric brands, are consumer-focused, seeking to understand consumer wants and needs. This is what will drive product development, their marketing strategies, and their messaging tactics. Consumers will tell you their wants and needs through their media behavior, those little bits of data that they leave behind. And what brands need to do is systematically listen. Now, traditionally, and those of you from a marketing background can, certainly have been, schooled in the marketing funnel. It's been around for quite some time. And generations of brand marketers have conceived their messaging campaigns in terms of the marketing funnel. But emerging research demonstrates the marketing funnel has become kind of an outdated view of consumer decision-making. It's linear. It's a simplistic stimulus response view of communication, and it doesn't reflect the highly interactive nature of the communication that is taking place in the digital communication environment. And ultimately, it sees the consumer as a passive target. And I referenced research being done, but it was McKinsey who put together, I think, kind of crystallized the view of the consumer journey. And their research on it is certainly worth referencing. But the research indicates that the consumer journeys are complex, they're highly idiosyncratic, and they're nonlinear. Rather than the idea that consumers respond to our actions, our messaging, brands seek touch points as consumers go through their consumer journey. And touch points are opportunities where consumers can connect with brands, that brands can engage consumers with messaging relevant to their wants and needs. Thing to understand about the consumer journey is understand that not all touch points are brand initiated. And what brands are seeking to do as consumers move through this process is make sure that they have the right message at the right time in the right media platforms, when they have the opportunity to engage the consumers. So how do we adapt our courses to the IMC's new world? And as we indicated in the title, avoid the arrested development. And I hope that was something that attracted your attention. But important to this is the idea that we need to know our real consumers as instructors, as faculty who develop curriculum. You need to know the IMC job market trends. What are the jobs out there and what skill sets are they requiring? Think of your course as a brand, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. And also discover the disconnects and white spaces in your courses? What aren't you doing? What unmet needs do your students have? And then finally, create relevant class projects. We need to ask ourselves, what is the disconnect between what we teach and what the market wants? And these are the factors that are arresting the development of relevant, focused courses. If you haven't seen the article in today's Associated Press about declining enrollment, it's not simply a demographic trough, that increasingly young people are not seeing the value. And I would argue that perhaps we haven't been delivering the value that they're looking for. Instructor overload. We're all overworked. We may be teaching more courses than usual. We probably have larger sections than usual, and administrators keep asking us to do things that they should be doing. But I think one of the major problems that we have in all of this is that we are stuck in our academic silos. The idea, if we teach within a particular discipline, we have the sense that here are the things that we cover, here are the courses that we offer, and the idea of getting beyond those silos to address consumer needs. We need to get beyond that. Lack of consumer and customer centrism. We are discipline focused. Far too often we're not student focused, consumer focused in what we're developing. We fail to explore partnerships, both on campus, trying to bridge between those academic silos, to put together, multidisciplinary degree programs. And we also fail to explore partnerships outside of the institution for, professional adjunct instructors, for guest speakers, for internships, for advisory board members, et cetera. And then we fail to respond to the disconnects that we have addressed. So it boils down to, if you want to look at it, we have three very inconvenient truths and disconnects going on. And we could say, and I asked the people that are here in marketing, how much do your students know about communication and about media platforms? I know from interacting with my students at the introductory level, they sure don't know much about business. And there are people within my discipline who would say, oh, that's business. That doesn't belong in our courses. And neither of them know much about how the businesses, how the media, and how the tools of IMC actually work. Your courses are brands. What are you doing to address your customers' needs, your students' needs? What are you doing to address your employers' needs? And so, of course, our students, they come to college, they're expecting that they'll be able to get a job afterward. And God knows parents want that student to get a job. Employers want skill sets, and we need to understand the skill sets that they're going to be looking for. So the bottom line here is the cost of an education, $100,000 investment. Are we offering a fair value exchange for that? And looking at that price tag with college education in mind, we have a fiduciary responsibility to deliver marketplace skills that students need to know, not just what we'd like to teach or what our discipline historically has taught. So what we see kind of coming down from this, and my colleague Jim is going to expand on this, we see a growing need for students to be conversant in data analytics, and that is tremendously important. They may not be doing the analysis, but they sure have to be able to make sense of the data that's given to them. The role of digital technology in IMC, and then finally how both of those elements influence content creation. So now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Jim to talk about the current job.
Thank you, Tom. The first slide that we're on right now has the 6 main job sectors. And those sectors represent pretty much everything that goes on out there in the IMC and integrated business world. On the right-hand side of the chart, you're going to see these sample organizations. that they could get jobs from that are hiring. So you start out, and this is alphabetical, with advertising tech and MarTech. Those are the programs that we run in the marketing tech world. You also have agencies that have needs, provide jobs. Students often don't think of it, but they can work client side. And you have consultants and research firms that serve as suppliers, those like Accenture, Deloitte, Forrester, Gartner, and McKinsey and Nielsen. Then you have the final, the media channels themselves. They're not the final spot, but you have possibility to work for Amazon if they're not laying people off, or Condé Nast in the publications area, and they're big in digital, TikTok, YouTube, and so on. And finally, we have this whole supporting infrastructure of production services, audio, video, multimedia, and even modeling, photo, and talent agencies. So they're all part of this mix. So let's look at the jobs in terms of vacancies. Now, we took a snapshot at the end of 2022, fourth quarter. And this is the Indeed listing with the keywords right after the word Indeed. At that time, there were 20,000 jobs in advertising under that listing. Digital marketing had about 30,000. Indeed's public relations count was about 21. And PR Week, which is a narrow site for public relations, had 950, or about 1,000, give or take. Many of the jobs are listed in multiple categories, so this is probably a little bit inflated. So now we know that it's a pretty robust market. What are the titles of the jobs that are in demand? Again, this is alphabetical largely, except for the digital marketing manager. You see the first batch, these are the titles that they're looking for: content creators, strategists, content marketing managers. In the creative sector, you have creative assistants, creatives, creative directors, digital brand managers. These are more or less functioning like a business in a business orientation. They function like a brand manager, but they handle the digital side of everything. The marketing data analyst and the marketing technologist, or what they call marketing ops, those are the people in your organization that take care of the software integration and so on. And that's quite important because right now there are over 10,000 separate MarTech AdTech software packages. Digital marketing manager, and then you have a cluster of social media. And social media coordinators, strategists, and the community managers, that's the people who kind of nurture your brand communities. Search engine optimization has categories: a specialist, a strategist, and a specific marketing manager. Now, some of this is being addressed by ChatGPT in the recent incarnations that are on Microsoft, Google, etc. But they still need jobs and they still need oversight. So, what are the generic skill sets that they look for? Out of those in LinkedIn, this is LinkedIn listing, not an Indeed, same fourth quarter, and this is pretty much in hierarchical order. They were looking for digital marketers, social media marketing, SEO, which a lot of times in our academic programs, we don't pay that much attention to. But it's a job area out there that is getting a lot of attention. Marketing strategists. Then they go into specific things like Adobe Photoshop. Got skills in that. Do you have skills in email marketing or content marketing, advertising, another generic, Google Analytics, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that should be an exit skill across disciplines, that they know how to use that. And finally, corporate communications, which is pretty much PR, both internal and external. So, what does that mean? What does all that stuff mean? And by the way, I know we went through those slides pretty quick, but in your follow-up packet, you will get the slide deck. The examples of skills sought basically are in two clusters, the soft skills and the hard skills. Now, the sample soft skills are pretty much boilerplate. That's the stuff that almost every employer wants to see, but they're always in a job listing, one degree or another. And a lot of times we use the liberal arts program or communication programs and what have you to provide those soft skills. And the hard skills, now that we narrow the funnel a little bit, and you see that they want audio editing, people who know how to run software systems, content management systems. They get specific. You should know HubSpot, Salesforce, the Adobe Experience Cloud. A new area is data analytics, data science, and data visualization. Then SEO search optimization. Again, here we see that coming up again. You also need to have some familiarity with Google Ads, Facebook Ads, Meta Ads. They're all software packages that run on those platforms. And finally, again, boilerplate, spreadsheets and PowerPoint. That is pretty much an exit skill. So what does this all mean? What is the main takeaway for this? Well, the main takeaway is basically very simple. IMC's job market is such that they want applicants with degrees and skill sets. So to put it another way, applicants with degrees are nice, but applicants with degrees and skill sets are even nicer. So that's a summary, and I hope that was helpful. Tom?
There we go. Had to unmute. Thank you, Jim. And I think I certainly hope that our participants find that overview valuable. I know I do in terms of getting that snapshot. One of the concepts that I've been excited about, getting into the consumer-centric view and what that does for you. You can look at the concept of finding the white space. And white space is characterized as unmet consumer needs, underserved audiences, et cetera. And in the first chapter of the text, and kind of like the opening day of the class, I talk about these innovative brands that have found the white space and established their brand in that position. We'll talk about, I want to come back to Airbnb here in a second to kind of expand on it. But Lululemon found the white space when they discovered through consumer data, through research, that there was a gap between gym clothes, kind of ugly old sweats and stuff like that, and fashion. And fashion conscious young professional women wanted something attractive that they could be, kind of live their active lifestyle in. So they created and they, came up with the whole concept of athleisure. They invented the term yoga pants, which became just absolutely ubiquitous. Warby Parker, any number of direct-to-consumer brands that emerged in this new digital environment were identifying spots, whether it was price, whether it was product. They were going to do something new and innovative. And they used data and analytics to understand the wants, the needs, et cetera. And going back to Airbnb, they started out, they identified that a segment of the travel market didn't want to stay in the business hotels. They wanted something different. They wanted to live among, the location that they're going to. They wanted something different. So Airbnb created a way to connect travelers with property owners, and so that they were getting a completely different travel experience. And now, again, using consumer data, they're responding to the informational needs of consumers. what they've done is they've discovered that they can reduce their paid advertising because consumers are going to them in search. They're linking to them through articles. They don't need to put the money into driving brand awareness. They've established that. So they've upped their investment in digital marketing channels and in public relations using video content marketing. So the idea people are going there. There's the video tour of the property that they're looking at. The public relations last year generated over 600,000 articles, all with links that will take consumers to the sites. We'd like to think that, we identified the white space when we started the research and writing this new textbook, because there was a new environment and the existing textbooks just weren't speaking to this new environment. They still reflected kind of an old perspective from the 1990s. So go forward. What I'd like to do now is share with you a couple of assignments that I use in my class, and I use another one that I could certainly tell you about maybe in Q&A, but these are two that I think could be useful to you all. The brand messaging analysis and the brand case study project, the idea that they're real world relevant analysis. Okay, so the persuasive brand messaging analysis. What this assignment does is essentially reverse engineer the creative process. We begin looking at the components of the ads, the message framework. For example, it's a vignette, it tells a short story. The way that they combine different types of claims. Rarely does an ad employ only one claim, kind of straight rational features to benefits, things like that. They discovered, the idea that you add an emotional component to a rational claim, that takes you a lot farther. That is motivating. One of my favorite Subaru ads pulls together the effective, the rational, and the ethical all in one at the end, like do the right thing, put your family in a Subaru. And also one thing to really emphasize here, the role of neuroscience research in helping us understand how people process visuals and the images that tell stories, and the idea that people kind of complete the story by consuming the images, the nonverbals, the makeup of the screen. Tremendously important. If you look at a lot of effective brand messaging, there's not a lot of text, there's not a lot of voiceover. The visuals are telling the story. And so what we do is, the students, I show them some ads, and then they do the analysis, and we all get together and talk about what was this ad trying to accomplish. Then the brand case study. And again, the stages of this case study reflect what the professionals do in campaign development. And what I do is replicate the process in a step-by-step fashion to reinforce the course learning objectives as we go. This is not something that they complete at the end of the semester after listening to me all semester. They complete each one of these segments, they submit it, I respond to it. Typically, I'm looking at how thorough they were. Do they understand the concepts? And then say, okay, go clean these things up. And then we go through this process to the end. Once we cover the relevant content, they have a segment to do. What this does for me, I'm able to provide them feedback as they go, and hopefully I'm reinforcing the learning as it goes. Also, it spreads out my grading. By the time that they turn in their final report, and they've put all these pieces together, I have a pretty good idea what that report is going to look like. So, I have responded to things. Have they cleaned these things up? And lastly, the students end up producing a far better product than don't forget, you've got this paper due at the end of the semester. So they do it step by step. I'm feeding back. I think it works amazingly well. All right, so I know we've rushed through things, but we did that because we want to address your questions that you have about this, and love to talk to you about your interest in the course and questions you have about it. You will be sent a post-webinar resource pack. You'll get an email from Kendall Hunt, so look out for that. There'll be a link to the webinar's free resource pack, link to the video copy, a PDF of the slide deck that we've used here today, sample of our updater newsletter. Every month we put out a newsletter that kind of identifies recent and relevant, occurrences in the IMC world. And then finally, a copy of the full copy of the IMC Jobs Outlook, not simply the slides, but kind of a full analysis of what's going on out there in the IMC job market. So that's all I've got. Let's open it up, Ryan, if you would like to share some questions with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I've been collecting them here. First one for Jim. You mentioned all the jobs available in media at the moment, but then, we keep hearing about all the layoffs in the market. What gives?
They made, shall we say, irrational, exuberant hires right after the pandemic. So the companies got fat. Then when things started to trim down, they realized, okay, what have I done? I'm not making as much money. I've got to cut. And this is kind of typical. This is not anything genius. Businesses go through this all the time. The second thing you need to know is that whatever those generic cuts are, they include generally international. So not all of those job cuts were U.S. They don't tell you necessarily what departments, divisions, et cetera, they go in. The best we could determine off the most recent rounds is that a lot of those people are software engineers, code writers, developers, and so on. So only if they cut a whole project do you wind up getting a lot of IMC job-related cuts. So if they kill their metaverse project, then you're going to get some cuts. However, the one thing that I always advise students to do is and professors actually, is to think like the hockey great who once said, I skate where the puck is going, not where the puck is. Basically meaning, keep your eye out for what jobs are trending and what are new. AI is obviously an area as it applies to marketing. So that's kind of a summary of what's going on.
Skate into that white space in a different sense. So nice. You mentioned guest speakers. Do you have examples of professions that have presented in your class, and how often do you invite them in?
Oh my goodness, yes. We have our PRSSA chapter has a regular, probably 2 or 3 times a semester, they'll have somebody in. We're just north of the Pittsburgh market, and many of our alumni are down in that market. So we have a steady stream of alums and other people that maybe we've had internships with will come up as well. We've been able to develop a professional advisory board from people with advertising, public relations, media production that reflect kind of the course background we have, who serve in a variety of capacities for us. We have events where they come to campus, networking events and things like that. And this is particularly true if you're close to an urban setting. You can also reach out to agencies. You can reach out to brand, companies, et cetera, and start building relationships. It helps your students. The idea you can get them to campus, sometimes to teach, but to visit. But also you're building relationships for your students to say, hey, Ryan, I've got a really good student that you should take a look at. And I think that's an important thing to do.
And don't forget, one of the most important things about that is that SUNY New Paltz was close to New York City, so we had no problem getting people up. It was a vacation for them, so to speak, day off. And we had guest speakers on almost in any area that you wanted. If you happen to be in a more rural location, like I know some of the participants today, or I know there's one in Montana, not a lot of agencies near you, not a lot of high-tech companies, so you could always use Zoom. video conferencing is a way, so don't be afraid to pick up the phone, call somebody and say, hey, can you do this?
Yeah, and I think it's probably mutually beneficial. You invite these employers in and they get to see, yeah, like you had mentioned, Tom, these bright students, take an eye at them. So when you have them in addition to your online research, I guess this kind of combines too, but your online research for job skill sets, do you talk with these employers? Do you meet with local employers to get their idea of what skill sets are needed and
Oh,
how you
absolutely.
can?
Yeah, and the idea that, I suppose as Jim's pointing out, that there will probably be differences region by region in terms of things. Speaking of Montana, the idea that understanding how tourism related marketing and communication activities would I assume would be important. So you want, the more that you can build these relationships, I think the better it's going to have. We had a problem at Slippery Rock when I first came here. University did not have a good reputation. In Pittsburgh, the businesses and agencies down there were hiring from Pitt. They were hiring from Duquesne and Point Park College, and they really weren't giving our students a look. We built relationships, the idea of inviting them up, so then they would come to have a better understanding of who we were and what we were teaching. And so the idea they would give our students a shot and internships. And after a while, they were discovering that our students were as well prepared as anybody from any of the schools that they might have.
Yeah, the size of the school is irrelevant.
Yeah.
In other words, you can make your course, your program, relevant. And I hate to say this, but that you can do better than some of the programs at the bigger schools.
Yes.
So,
and again, it's the idea that you create courses and you create curriculum that are delivering these skills that you're not bound by. I can remember I did a short course at NCA in Salt Lake City. And I was talking about IMC and a woman raised her hand. She said, we're in communication. Should we even be teaching these things? And I was kind of flabbergasted. And I said, of course, because your students need to know these things.
which it always reminds me that when I talk with my business colleagues, over coffee, you'd hear the phrase, well, if we don't have a product, and that goes back to the classic 4Ps, price, promotion, product. And I said, guess what? You don't have a business if you don't involve communication and communicate with your prospects, with your target market. So those little silos are starting to break down, which is a good thing.
Yeah, and locally here, I've been on advisory committee for a local community college, developing their curriculum to better fit their needs as well. So yeah, it is definitely a two-way partnership.
Excellent.
One last question. Tom, I assume this is probably for you. It's the brand campaign case study assignment.
Sure.
Do students get to pick their own brand, or do they select from a pool
yes,
that
yes,
you
they
provide?
do. And I think that's important. And I say, think of something you want to work with all semester. And then I say, go out and see if you can find information. And that kind of becomes the key, like, okay, I want to work with this. And yes, I'm finding the type of information that I need to answer these questions. And I send them, I said, first stop should go to their website and rummage around on their website, because you're going to find all these things that we're talking about. And then I say, can you find their agency of record? Do they have an agency of record? Because they're going to have things there too. And then go to the trade publications and start digging through the trade publications. I hate to be a heretic, but I am not finding a lot of things useful, at least to the classes that I teach, in any of the journals, either in communication or in business marketing, et cetera. Now, there is some good stuff in behavioral psychology if you dig around, but it's getting to the trade publications, getting to the website, et cetera.
Just a quick point that if you think that professionals out there are just dying to see the latest academic research, you might be in for a surprise. They're not. That's why it's essential for students to get involved with the trade magazines, trade publications.
And there's another example of being discipline centric. The idea that our research, it's all about serving ourselves. It's about serving our discipline, as opposed to serving our students. And developing backgrounds, helping them learn the things that they need to learn, which it's a shame, but we do these things for tenure and promotion.
And the scary thing is, on one hand, if you don't, under the current environment, especially with a quote unquote recession headed our way, which is either ongoing now and we don't know it, or a lot of us don't know it, but this reflects, if you're able to deliver students that get jobs, then your program benefits. When your program benefits, the school benefits. So you buffer yourself a little bit from the flight from college. Why? Because it goes back to that original point that we made earlier, and that is, what are they getting for their $100,000?
Yep. And that AP article, it's funny, just in my morning scan, there it was, that students, it's not, cost is obviously part of this, but the idea they just don't see the value in much of what they're getting. And so, colleges need to wake up and smell the coffee. That's for sure.
Well, some of them have, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tom and Jim. This has been fun. Very productive. All the attendees, a reminder, this has been recorded. You'll get a copy of it in the coming days, along with the PDF copy of Tom and Jim's slide deck, a sample of their IMC Updater newsletter, and that white paper, the IMC Job Outlook of 2023 white paper. Hope everyone has a great day, and we will chat soon. Take care.
Thank you, Ryan. And thank you all.
Thanks, Ryan.